Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of Safety Culture Solutions, brought to you by Safety Culture Strategies. Each week we have the opportunity to talk to some amazing leaders throughout industry and safety culture and learning organizations to bring great examples of ways to truly benefit all of our viewers. This week we are so thrilled to welcome Jim Root with us today. He's a lifetime entrepreneur, business analyst, and consultant to over hundreds of companies the last 25 years. He brings a unique perspective regarding worldwide experience with cutting-edge concepts to help businesses and teams accomplish their goals. He's created productive teams in practically every industry, including manufacturing, retail, financial services, real estate, and direct sales. His passion is to inspire, train, and assist businesses in their quest for success. He has discovered the key principles that can transform business and get it to the next level. As founder and president of the business training organization and Next Step Academy, he brings his action-oriented training programs to businesses who need direction and support. The refreshing combination of education and customization for businesses provides an engaging experience with clear action items so they know what to do next. His proven strategies and techniques can focus on a single productivity issue or be combined into a full training and support program. By the way, Jim seems to have an unlimited supply of energy, and he always gives 100% to his audience and his clients. He's also the incoming president of the Las Vegas chapter of National Speakers Association. Jim, welcome to the Analyst Show, and thank you so much for joining us today. And as we get queued up, I got to ask, right? I've had presidents on here. I've had vice presidents, about everybody in the C-suite. I've had COOs, CEOs. What is a CSO? I think that's a new one for me.
Well, I'll tell you, I see a lot of C's in the C-suite, and I was confused for a little while about CTO until someone clarified for me that it was necessary to carve out a chief technology officer, right?
Right.
Well, I have come to realize that the C-suite has been missing the CSO, which is the chief solutions officer.
Oh, look at you. I love it. That is perfect. Because candidly, if we were going to put a thumbtack on the wall with a Post-it note underneath it, that's who you is. You're a chief solutions officer.
True.
So how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Las Vegas. The weather is amazing. This is why I live here. So I'm having a great day, and I had a great week. So this is a great cherry on the top of my week. So thank you for having me here.
You bet. I'm thrilled to have you with us. And obviously, we talk about safety culture, and I've known you for quite a while. We spend a lot of time together. And with mine, the tagline from my company is Safety Culture Strategies, that every company has a culture, but is it the culture you want? So we're going to be able to share some of the insight you've learned on that. But to kind of start off, there's usually a question I like to get on the front end of it. So what would you view as, if there's one key thing that leaders really need to clearly understand regarding having a positive safety culture, what do you think that'd be?
Well, I'm going to answer that question a little bit different because it's a great question, but I'm going to go one step further and take half a step back from safety and say, if there's one key thing that a leader should know about culture, safety is one of them, but there's a lot of different cultures that you can have. And the one key thing I would say is, do you even know what your own culture is and what you bring to the table? Because if you don't know what your culture is, you're going to be struggling to integrate that with all of the other cultures going on inside of your organization, safety being one of them.
So when you say your culture, are you talking about the company? I believe you may be talking about the leader themselves, right?
Yes, I'm talking about the leader. The company has a culture, but that culture is a combination of all of the individual cultures brought together. And those create this overriding culture. And it's interesting when you have different cultures. The one when we talk that always comes up is the safety culture. The one company that has a clearly defined safety culture from top to bottom is Volvo. It's in their mission statement. It's all of the products they design. It's in their sales and marketing. Everything is about safety. Well, there's other companies, for instance, Apple And their culture, the company culture, is all about innovation and beautiful products, right? So safety obviously takes a back seat from that because it's not their number one priority. But what I find is too many companies, and those are two good examples of people that have a clearly defined culture as an organization and also from the top down. But I find that many organizations, they don't have a clearly defined culture for the entire company. So what happens is the CEO or whoever is the front man, sometimes it's the COO, is leading the culture. And so the culture just sort of takes on whoever that leader is. And most of the time, they don't know what their own culture is. Are they a sale?
Wow.
Do they bring a sales culture, or do they bring an operations culture or a safety culture to the table? And if they don't know what their own culture is, they're leading, and that culture may just by default be trickling down to the rest of the organization.
And it's a fascinating perspective, so that leader really needs to kind of look in, if you would, look in the mirror and just say, what culture am I bringing? And then how can it fit into the current culture of the organization? Because undoubtedly, yeah, you have everybody in accounting and sales, wherever you're at, but that overall culture, it aligns readily with when you talk about your safety culture, having people engaged, clear lines of communication, the leader understands what's going on. One of the best examples I found over the years, and I know it makes you cringe a little bit as well, when organizations talk about an open door policy, stop by and talk to me anytime. The majority of time, for many reasons, people aren't comfortable doing it. And so then the leadership team says, well, it must be okay because nobody's stopping by with a problem, right? Yeah.
It's funny. The assumption that because you haven't heard of a problem, there is no problem is dangerous at every level. That's dangerous safety-wise, profitability-wise, sustainability. You have to assume that things are broken, but that's not the way people do it. They assume that everything is okay if they're not hearing from anybody, and that is absolutely not the case. In fact, our last conversation, we got a little off on a tangent, but I think it's important here, is we were talking about a television show, Undercover Boss.
There you go.
It's all about the boss thinking everything is fine. Oh yeah, we need to do this and we need to do this and these are the best things for our company. And then they go undercover down to the front line and they realize that none of the things they thought were important were actually being implemented. And there's serious problems at the front line and at the mid-level. That's what I find interesting is that showcases how culture and communication, they think that it's all about one thing at the C-suite, and then you get into this mid-level management, and it's something totally different. And that's totally different at the task level, at the frontline level. And I think that once those cultures are aligned, people all have a shared culture, have a shared viewpoint, a shared set of goals, then that open door makes more sense because they're more likely to have a common frame of reference. And so that's one of the things that I love to do with my new clients is I go undercover for them, basically.
Oh, really?
And I go into the front line and I say, look, I'm going to go talk to the front line and the middle managers, and I'm going to ask some pointed questions if you don't mind. And they say, yeah, we need that information.
Okay.
And they are almost always surprised at what I learn.
So you get the opportunity. This is fascinating. Just like an undercover boss, you get the opportunity to go spend time with the people at the task level, the people turning the wrenches for the living, administrative duties. So, and they gain your trust very quickly because they understand you got their best interest in heart. So you gather all this information and then you take it back to the senior team. And for our viewers, when we say C-suite, that's a CO, CFO in this case, and the CSOs, that higher level team. So when you bring that back to the president and his C-suite team, how's that work for you? Because they may not necessarily be ready for the answers or what you've discovered.
They are never ready for the answer. Not almost. They are never ready. So I am really gentle and nice and diplomatic before they hire me, that there might be some things that will shock them. And so I I try to set the expectation level so that when I find out the real diagnosis, they're not as freaked out. But I always make sure to get the contract before I give them the real information because I don't want to scare them away. But it is kind of interesting because if anyone was to hire me, it's because they really want they want to see dramatic change. They want to see a dramatic improvement. And they wouldn't hire me if they were looking for a minor change in margins or in profit values. They're looking to me because they know that there is something wrong. They just don't know what it is. And so since they don't know what it is, I get to tell them, thank you for letting me come in and do the diagnosis. We figured it out. And so generally there's this combination of pain over hearing that it's really bad and relief that we've now identified it.
Wow. So real quick, a lot of companies or versions not like you, because you're definitely very unique and a lot of positive reasons. So when some organization will bring in like an independent assessor, and when they go to talk to people at the task level, the people that do the work every day, they really seem to have a lot of challenge connecting with those individuals fairly quickly. What's some of your secret sauce? I imagine you probably got some company confidential stuff. You don't want to share all your tricks, but what's a couple ideas so you can get engagement?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing as many tricks as I can, confidentiality agreements and such aside. Yep. I will tell you there is something really, really simple. And it's crazy how simple it is. Ask a good question and truly listen to the answer.
Beautiful.
And you might be wondering, what is a good question? Truly listen to the answer is the harder part. The good question's pretty easy, and I give everybody the question that they should be asking. And it's what I ask when I go to any level, which is, what is the one thing that I could do that would make your job, that would make it easier for you to do a better job, that would make your job easier, that would make you more successful at your job? So here's the thing that a lot of people don't do. They're looking at how can you be successful in the company. So they want a frontline worker to give me some deep analytical answer on how we can improve our company. They don't know.
No.
But if you ask a question like, what could I do to make you more successful at your job? Now, you really listen to that answer. This person knows what their job is. They're doing this. They're turning the wrenches. Like you said, they have this job, and there is something that they trip over every single day.
Yes.
And if someone really listens to the answer, it opens up that engagement you're talking about, because people don't listen. Right? They just assume that they know what the problem is and they know what the solution is. And if you really take the time to listen to a frontline worker and a middle manager, and this even goes for the C-suite, right? Because I ask these same questions at the C-suite level. I go, look, what would be the one thing that you make you more successful as a company? And that question, they go, oh, we really need this, that, and the other. And I go, okay. Now I have a framework of what they think they want. Very good. Can that even be done? Right? So now let's look at the front line and the middle management level and see if what you're requiring from the rest of the team is even possible. Because a lot of times it's not even possible. They want something that is beyond the abilities of the team to provide.
It's beyond the reach. And with middle management, a phrase I stole years ago, a lot of organizations, that's called the clay layer. So you have your senior team, the C-suite talking about stuff, right? And so then you have down here at the lower tier and the task guy doing his work, and you got that management in the middle. And sometimes that communication doesn't flow as seamlessly as it could, so that person, that task level, they tell Jim, they says, hey, it'd be great if I could turn left instead of right. Well, by the time that goes through 4 or 5 layers of management, the leadership, nobody's got anything to say. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to put Jim on the spot when we come back. I think he might have an example or two from his undercover boss strategy. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Safety Culture Solutions.
Safety Culture Strategies provides world-class safety culture and safety program management consultative services for clients throughout the United States. Whether your company is pursuing Voluntary Protection Program STAR designation, ISO 45001 certification, or considering a comprehensive review of your current safety programs and processes, Safety Culture Strategies brings hands-on experience combined with a unique perspective that readily translates from senior management to task-level personnel. This collective skill set provides you with a very insightful health check of your overall safety management system that can also assist with reducing injuries and attrition, as well as increasing profitability. Safety Culture Strategies is also certified to provide Ziegler Institute employee engagement training and leadership coaching. When combined with established relationships with federal and state regulators, Safety Culture Strategies is uniquely positioned to assist the safety culture efforts of any company. For additional information, visit www.scstrat.com or call us at 702-780-1410. After all, every company has a safety culture, but is it the culture you want?
And we're back with Jim Root is on board with us. He's President, COO, and CSO of Next Step Solutions. He is a fascinating guy. We always have a lot of fun. And the main problem Jim and I have is if we go to have coffee, well, next time we know it's time for dinner because we just can't. We have a lot of parallel interest and at the same time, and there's a lot of synergy and energy, and it's always great to be around you. So we kind of queued you up before our commercial break, sir. So you might have one or two examples of this undercover boss you could share on how it went, and more importantly, how did it help the company long term?
So obviously, we will change the names of to protect the innocent here. I won't share specific names of companies I've worked with, but the first thing that came to mind was a client of mine who was a commercial real estate company, and their concern was about vacancy rates at their commercial properties, mainly retail properties, so
Sure.
strip malls, things like that. And they said, well, we've had a couple of properties where we're really struggling and hovering right at around 30% occupancy, and this is really hurting us. Can you tell us what's going on? I said, oh yeah, sure. Let me see what I can find out, right? So I went to the mall and I walked around and I had a dozen conversations with the people that were shopping at the mall. And I said, oh, what do you think of this mall? And overwhelmingly, the answer was, well, it seems kind of dead. Doesn't seem like anything's ever happening.
Wow.
So then I said, oh, make a couple of notes, right? And then I went around and spoke to some of the retailers. There was a couple of restaurants in there. So I sat down and had lunch and just snacked a little, asked if I could talk to the manager or the owner. And I got a couple of conversations with some of the owners of the stores that were currently there. And their response was, I asked them, what is it that you think is what we could do to improve the center? And their answer was, well, it'd be nice if there were some things happening in the center, if there were some things going on, if it wasn't so dead. And I was like, well, look at this. Wow. Yeah. We've gone, we have the solution after just a couple of conversations. This is crazy, right? Yeah, but then I went back to the C-suite. Actually, we sat in the board room. It was very interesting because I told them, I said, what would you identify as the biggest need for the center? And their need here was very interesting is they said it needs more visibility because more visibility would allow our realtors to showcase the thing a little bit better and we'd get more leases that way. And I sat there and I said, you know, what's very interesting is you all at every level here, and this was a relatively shallow organization, but at every level, everyone wants the same thing. You want more visibility, the tenants want more things going on to bring in more traffic, and the traffic that's coming in wants more things to do. All of these are one thing.
Essentially, they're all the same
And
thing.
so, yeah, so it was really very interesting that there was such a disconnect in the implementation of more visibility, right? So more visibility for the C-suite was all about advertising in the newspaper and advertising on local TV to try and get people to come, right?
Right.
Well, and visibility for the retailers was all about special offers and giving discounts or things like that to raise visibility. But the real solution came from the customers because they wanted activities. They wanted things happening at the center. So this was actually one of my most fun solutions because what I did was I integrated with all the local nonprofits to bring
Really?
nonprofit fundraising events to the center. Car washes, swap meets, these things, all those sorts of things. So there was just activity.
Sure.
It raised our image because we got coverage in the newspaper all the time because we were raising money for these nonprofits.
Exactly.
The nonprofits always brought a lot of people. So where did they go and eat lunch? Well, we happen to be here. Let's go
Probably
here.
eat it there.
Let's go shopping. So I am really excited about that example because in just over 3 years, we went from about 30 some odd percent occupancy
Right.
to a point where I got fired. Because we had 100%.
Explain that to me.
Well, we had 100% occupancy, and I was there to fill up the place, and so my services were no longer required. They didn't have any more need for me. I moved over to a couple of different projects with them, but that specific project, I was done.
You completed, and that's a perfect segue because I was always talk about how people can measure management engagement and management process. Well, here's a great example. They went from a 30% occupancy and about to 100%, and they've been able to sustain it for a while.
Yeah. They had some really they got some good anchor tenants out of it as well.
Wow.
And mainly it was really great because the biggest anchor tenant they got specifically said, this is a nice testimonial for me, specifically said, we chose this center because you have so many community activities going on in the center. Yeah. Wow. So that was kind of nice.
So got another question for you because you've been at this a while, and just like a lot of us, you've had the chance to rub shoulders with giants, for lack of a better phrase. So who do you view as one of your most influential people that's helped aim your career and give you some lessons learned and really helped you get on the right trajectory for your success?
So that's a question you didn't prep me for. So I need to give this about 3 or 4 seconds of thought. The first thing that comes to mind when I think about influential people are people that I didn't know personally. Wow. So I'll answer the question with that first of all. The Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has so tremendously changed my life.
Wow.
And my business. I read it and reread it about every year. The ability to really listen to what people are saying and to understand them, that is by far the best manual for that. So I would highly encourage anyone to pick up an old copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. You cannot go wrong. It really gives you some valuable insights into just seeing from the other people's perspective. As far as people that have influenced my career, I have to say the biggest one was my dad.
Oh, cool.
So, and I had not only upbringing, how to see the world, but actually as a client also. So he was one of my first clients when I was a youngster as an entrepreneur. He hired me, and I had to pitch to be to actually work for his company. So there was no nepotism there.
There was no nepotism there.
Nope. I was a teenager, so I was still in high school, but I had started a couple little side businesses, and he had a little construction company in Southern California, and I learned early that being my father, you know, we all have these father issues where we think we're better than our dads, you know. I made a conscious choice early on in my teenage years to learn everything I could from him, even if I didn't necessarily like him. But I would say my dad is probably my biggest influence as a business owner, because he forced me to propose a deal. And I had to do a proposal. I had to do regular reports, and he was always giving me feedback on how to be better. So always look for those that feedback at every level, not just individuals. I've worked with some giants of industry. I did get a chance to work with Tony Robbins for a little while.
Wow.
He did not have as big of an impact on me when I worked with him as he did when I read his book back in the early '80s. His book Unlimited Power was a really good book, and so that was a big influence on me. Being able to work with his organization, that was kind of nice. So I don't know if I'd answered your question, but
You're right on target. And you're talking about your dad, because as I recall, the older I got, the smarter my parents got. You know? And we're getting towards the tail end of it. I think one of the topics you had some great insight on was communications as well, and just the importance of it and what you've seen as some fairly effective techniques.
Well, let's talk about communication. I said it already once, listening, right? I think too many people, when they think about communication, they think about what they're saying. And they forget that the other person is saying something too. And communication is both directions.
Absolutely.
And so we're so focused on what we want to say that we forget that the other person, that there's two different perspectives here. And so what we say has to go through this filter. And we oftentimes think we're good communicators. And we're not, because we're good communicators inside of our head. But do we really see how that translates into the other person understanding what we say? So I feel like one of the strategies that I use, as I said, is an open-ended question that really focuses on their perspective. I use that in my business, and it's really made me a much better business person when I just recognize that I have to listen. And that listening is 90% of it. If you're listening, then you can't be talking. So you should, shut up and listen.
Shut up.
And asking a good question, and then really listening to the answer and making sure you understand the answer as well.
Very good point.
Noticing
Very
that
good point.
their communication, they're communicating using their own words and their own culture and their own language. And so each of us have a language of our own. And once we recognize that, it becomes a lot easier to get on the same page.
Get on the same perfect strategy. We're getting towards the end of the show. I warned you in advance. It flies by when I got people like Jim Root with me. So you're on a stage and speaking in front of a big group. You might have done this before. A lot of C-suite people, maybe even a few CSOs in the room with you. So when you talk about this global world of culture and the safety culture, and you have your 45 minutes and you got a few Q&As for them, and you go to leave the stage and you got rounding applause and the hats are throwing in there, what's 2 or 3 things you want to make sure that they write down and take back to their office?
I'll give you 3 things.
Perfect.
It starts with the big one. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Listen and help.
Wow. Okay.
If you can do those, if you can simplify things, because everything, whether it's safety culture, manufacturing, retail, it doesn't matter what business you're in, there's a lot of moving parts, right?
Good point.
But if you can simplify it, this is how you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
Yes, sir.
Stop making it so complicated. Listen and help. And I will tell you that I think the C-suite is probably the biggest the biggest I don't know. I'm trying to say something and I'm fumbling my words a little bit, but I think the C-suite is the biggest problem in most companies because they forget that they work for money.
Good point.
And they work for all of the employees.
Very good point.
And if they were to help the company be successful, listen to what's going on at the task level, at the consumer level, at the middle management level, their company would see the benefits of that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And we got Jim Root. But before we go away, how do people get a hold of you, brother?
Well, my cell phone number was actually up on there, and I am totally fine with people calling me on my cell phone. It actually amazes me how few people do. So you can call me, text me if I'm available. I answer my phone, and it's one of the things that has made me successful is I'm accessible. So call me if you want to reach out to me and you want to schedule a time to get together and talk. The best way to do that is through LinkedIn. You can find me as Jim Root on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy, not difficult at all. And I am very accessible. So I'm always looking to help. And I'm happy to give anyone who's interested a 20, 30-minute conversation about what's going on with them. I don't charge for that. Happy to just have a conversation, see what they're struggling with. Maybe I could give them a couple little tips on overcoming the stressors there.
Excellent. And we can't thank Jim Root enough. He is President, COO, and CSO of the Next Step Academy. And a couple of thoughts for all the leaders in that C-suite who's listening in and viewing and sharing this. Figure out what your personal culture is, what you bring to the dance, as my granddaddy would say. And when you have a chance and you're talking with people out in the field, you send somebody to go out and be with them, what's one thing we could be doing different? And how can we help? You listen, you learn, and you respond. I always like to close out with some thoughts. I found a good one, I think. A good friend of mine, or associate I follow on, is Stephen Covey, right? He says, I'm not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions. Until next time, this is Mike Kinney, Safety Culture Solutions. Enjoy your safety culture journey. Have a great day.